Hey, good Tuesday evening, everyone. State Representative Brad Halbrook here, along with my friends. We have leader, chairman of the Illinois Freedom Caucus, Chris Miller. We have leader David Freese, representative from the southwestern corner of the state of Illinois. And we have also leader Senator Chesney from the northern frozen tundra of Illinois. And we have State Director Colin Mosley, State Director of the Illinois Freedom Caucus. So we just wanted to kind of give you round two of the 12 days of Christmas here this evening. And with that, gentlemen, let's just get it kicked right off. We're going to talk about pensions, taxes, and populations. And I'm sure we're going to hear how these things are all tied together, why these are important issues. And with that, let's just go to the next slide as we get into this. Leader Freeze, we're going to talk about pensions. This is probably the most talked about subject in the state of Illinois over the last dozen years, probably since a Tier 2 plan was put in existence to try to fix the pension system. But Illinois Policy released this report not very long ago that says if we would pour $1 million a day into the pension debt, it would take 600 years to fill that pension hole. What's your thoughts on that?
You're right. So this has been a topic of discussion since I got to Springfield. It's one of the things I actually campaigned on. I actually said, look, the state should get away from these guaranteed pensions. They need to go to a 401k system, just like every other private business. When you see these numbers, it is absolutely staggering. $1 million a day times 600 years just to fill the flipping hole. It's sickening. It is absolutely sickening. And we've got politicians that make promises that they can't keep. And to try and keep those promises, they got to raise everybody's taxes. It is absolutely disgusting. We come in second behind California, if that tells you where we're at. So that's something to be proud of.
Right. And probably the only reason their pension debt is larger than ours is just they have more population. It's just been a bigger deal just because of population base. But and so we see Homewood and many other communities are having to make budget decisions, because the cost of their pensions payments is crowding out other essential services and things that they do. And of course, also, we had an opportunity here with billions of dollars that flowed into the state of Illinois the last 5.5 years from the feds. We had an opportunity to use that money to pay down the debt. And I don't know, Chairman Miller or Leader Chesney, if you guys want to touch on what did we do with that money?
Go ahead, Chris.
Could you ask that question again?
Yeah, what do we do with the billions of dollars that the feds poured into the state the last 5.5 years? Instead of using it to pay down pension debt, what did the state of Illinois choose to do with it?
Well, I think that if you look back at what they did, they just followed the Democrat template: is more taxes, more borrowing, more spending, and they just can't get out of their template that they follow. Is that they have a history of being completely fiscally irresponsible with the funds that they had. Another little fun fact, I can't remember, it was either in 19 or 20 that we got an additional $1.2 billion from the Trump tax cuts. And all of the committees had closed and the budget was made. They reopened all of the committees and spent every doggone dime of that $1.2 billion on whatever it is, their pet projects, but they just find a way to squander and tyrannize the Illinois taxpayers, and particularly the middle class here in Illinois.
Yeah, instead of trying to be fiscally responsible, they just expand or they create new programs.
Right. Yeah. Every favorite pet social program that's out there, and I'm sure they created new programs, and now they want those new programs to be funded in perpetuity as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Gentlemen, any other thoughts on this before we move to the next slide?
Well, one of my thoughts are, because it's just like this fun fact here, $1 million a day at 600 years to fill the pension hole. If you want to show me how the math works on that and how we ever get out of it, I'd be interested to see that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that translates into almost over $17,000 of liability per resident.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, completely impossible. With that, Leader Chairman Miller, you talked about taxes, and this is kind of one of the next hotter subjects. And again, this is probably one of the leading forces that leads us to our third slide to talk about. But we'll talk about taxes and how the supermajority party and the governor just continues to think that we are just human ATMs, that we are fast becoming indentured servants to the state of Illinois. What's your thoughts on all this whole tax situation now in the state of Illinois?
Well, I think that all of this whole conversation of the 12 days of Christmas, if you follow the bouncing ball on all of these, they all dovetail into each other. The pensions, the high property taxes, and population bleed, they all bleed into each other. I know that we have family members that joined the Exodus and went to Tennessee because the property taxes alone in Champaign-Urbana were going to be approximately $15,000 a year. They go have a very similar situation in Tennessee. Their property taxes are a little bit less than $2,000 a year on a much nicer home. And that seems to be consistent. I know that I went to stop at Monocle's to get some pizza with my 94-year-old dad last night, and the waitress that works there she said, "Can I ask you a couple of questions?" The first one was about, she's going to still get taxed on tips here in the state of Illinois, even though the golden age of America and Donald Trump's administration have waived that, plus overtime, which I'm sure that dramatically affects her. But her main concern was they're farmers, and so they're considering building a new house on their farm. And she said that the last couple of years that their property taxes have doubled. And she said, is there any way to slow this down? And I said, I don't know, because my experience is the same. And all of these things are contributing to the exodus, just like what's going on in the city of Chicago with all the vacant buildings. It's because of, they just can't afford to pay their real estate taxes. And particularly young families are the ones that are really being tyrannized by this, because when you add up the mortgage plus the real estate taxes, they make housing unaffordable in Illinois unless you're an illegal immigrant.
Right. Yeah, property taxes are skyrocketing. We got the highest gas tax in the nation. We've got some municipalities now in Chicago that I think are going to have a 10.5% sales tax because of the new transit bill that it will be signed this week. The list just goes on and on. Gentlemen, Leader Chesney, Leader Freeze, any other thoughts on this particular matter?
Well, my thoughts would just be is, at what point will the Democrats ever stop punishing the taxpayers? And I don't know that they ever will, right? So we've seen spending go up 39% under Governor Pritzker, and it never translates to any relief anywhere. The Democrats proudly, huddle together and smile and take pictures and say, we got it done. And they do. They get it done by spending billions and billions of dollars of additional tax of our tax dollars. And then they pass that along, of course, to everyday working people. But it kind of shows you where their heart is, because they use the word decouple, which is just a fancy way of saying tax. So they decide to tax, people that earn tips. So they're not going to do it at the federal level, but they thought they should do that to the hardworking men and women that are in tip service. And I think it just kind of shows you the perpetuation of where the Democrats are as it relates to taxation. They won't stop. You can give them billions, they will spend it. It's more programs. You can give schools more money, they will spend it, more programs. And then they backfill their population loss with illegal immigrants. And so very, very dangerous type of policies. And we've seen it throughout the state. And most people are now firing the state of Illinois. They're done voting, they're done complaining, and as Chris mentioned, they're now leaving.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Just real quick, so they're going to still tax, tipped wages. Who is in that industry? It's a lot of single moms, and they need the tax relief. And here we are. We're going to continue to punish those individuals. They're not high wage earners. I'm sure they struggle day to day, paycheck to paycheck. and we cannot offer them in relief. It's a shame. And
Yeah.
you got all the taxes that are listed on the slide. You know, every time a new tax comes up, oh, it's only 2% more or whatever it is. But the problem is it's all cumulative. You know, it all adds up at the end of the day. And if you're a business, I don't care where you're at in the state. I mean, that tax gets added into the cost of the product or service, and which makes us uncompetitive. You know, nationwide. It's really unfortunate.
Right.
That's right. Brad, if I could add just two quick things. First of all, David went exactly where I wanted to go, which is like my mom was a single mom and a waitress for the majority of my elementary and junior high school career. And I remember her, you know, having to leave at 4:30, 5 in the morning to go in. And I think about what no taxes on tips could have done for her in that time of our life, the relief that no tax on tips could have brought to my single mom waitress. It would have been incredible, but yet, you know, here we have a situation where, of course, Illinois is choosing to not allow that relief. And then the other thing I was going to say is, and someone mentioned it earlier, as a young person, I mean, being a homeowner is almost impossible in Illinois when you add up all these things together: property taxes, income tax, sales tax. I mean, you just feel like you're playing whack-a-mole every day, and I see why people are choosing just to not do it.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and the very group of people that need some level of relief that the Democrats, the majority party, claim to help, right, for the little guy, you know, the single mom or somebody that's maybe in between jobs or students that need to put every nickel together to survive through their time in their life. This just kicks them in the head, this tax on tips. So, yeah. All right, next slide. So population's a big deal. We've talked about the property taxes. We've talked about all the taxes. We've talked about the pension mess that leads to higher taxes. But Leader Senator Chesney, I mean, we see these population numbers. This has been a thing for a number of years in the state of Illinois. What we have at one time in the state of Illinois, 25 maybe or more congressional districts, maybe back in the 70s and early 80s, and now we're down to 17. And of course, those are all based on population of about 750,000 people per congressional district, and we're losing population, losing congressional districts. But the governor is in denial, and then he says, well, it's because of the winners, it's because of this or that, and then he says, well, it happens to everybody. Well, it's not happening to all our neighbors. What's your thoughts?
Well, you know, the Democrats are a united front on being professional census deniers. So, you know, the independent third-party group that's kind of looked at the populations has kind of said, hey, you know, Illinois, you're losing some people. And then the Democrats hurried and, you know, tried to shove a bunch of illegal immigrants into our state to offset the population loss. You take a look at the outmigration of population. We're losing U.S. citizens, and it's getting backfilled by illegal immigrants, undocumented or visa type people, right? So we're not growing American citizens in the state of Illinois. We know that, right? I mean, you can see it in our communities. You can see it you can see it pretty much anywhere throughout the state. The challenge that you have is that many, if you ask the question, what type of people are we attracting? We are not attracting the people that we should in this state, right? I mean, you're not bringing the young, the best, and the brightest, because we are taxing the hell out of them. What are we attracting? Programs, people that want programs. So if you take a look at where the state of Illinois has set up those safe havens, it's for people that are lawbreakers, illegal immigrants. You have better health care than anybody in the state if you're a legal immigrant. You get free housing, you get free food, you get free education, you get free legal services. And so, of no surprise, guess who moves here? A lot of illegal immigrants. And guess who has to pay for them? We do on the state level, but then on the local level, through our townships and through our schools and what they call our wraparound services, we have to pay through it on the local level as well. And so this is probably the greatest crisis we have, is one, not only the population decline, but the types of people that want to move to the state and we're attracting are certainly out of balance and not where our priorities should lie.
Yeah, exactly. Well laid out. Miller or Freeze, any thoughts to add on to this population issue?
Just real quick. I mean, obviously, I mean, I'm sure everybody on this video right now has talked to people or, heard from individuals who are like, that's it, I'm tapping out. And either they've left the state of Illinois or they're packing their bags. It happens every week. And it's just a shame. And those individuals, they are the quote taxpayer that the governor wants and loves because they have the financial means to relocate, and they're doing it.
One thing that we have become is we've become a destination state for murderers, rapists, and pedophiles. That's the type of people that we are attracting. And unfortunately, all the Democrats' agenda is to replace Illinois citizens with illegal aliens. The people that bleed red, white, and blue aren't gonna vote for these communist Marxist radicals that the Democrat Party has become.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Well, gentlemen, I don't have anything else. So stay tuned as we dive into this. We're halfway through. More to come on immigration and energy and ethics, and of course, much more. Leader Freeze, I just wanted to touch the base and close the loop on this pension thought. You said that when you came here, the discussions have been about fixing the pension, and I think there has been some discussion, but it's about fixing tier 2 to make it look like tier 1.
I know. I have so many people reach out to me and they say, you got to fix tier 2. And I always say, well, what does that mean to you? We'll make it tier 1. I said, well, do you understand why we have tier 2? Because we can't afford tier 1. So I have had so many conversations with people about that. And I'm not saying there's some fixes that can or shouldn't be made, but just making tier 2, tier 1 is not the answer.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Any closing thoughts, Leader Chesney? And then we'll go to Miller and then maybe State Director Mosley. If you have any closing thoughts, Chesney?
Well, we have to set better policies. When we set better policies, we improve the lives of everybody we represent. I don't think it's a radical position to encourage that government allows taxpayers to keep more of what they earn, and the Democrat majorities just fleece the taxpayers and they won't stop. And we've seen even moderate states and even purple states that have tried to restore and put more money back into the pockets of people they represent. And in the state of Illinois, they call it a win when they hold the line. But in most cases, all they do is continue to tax and spend their way.
Yeah,
so we got to stop it.
Yeah, exactly. Chairman Miller?
Well, we continue the downward spiral. It's like that, when you flush the toilet, the swirl gets faster and faster as it's going down the drain. And we live in an era that the Democrat Party are the queens and kings of denial, that they deny that all these things that we discussed this morning are happening, but they're happening in real time right before our eyes. And regardless of what they want to claim is true, they live in a fantasy land of pixie dust and Peter Pan and Tinkerbell. And until they get real with themselves, and because every quality of life issue has gone down under the Pritzker regime and administration. And so it's important for them to finally own all this stuff and decide that they want to work together and fix this and clean up the mess.
Yeah, exactly. Director Mosley, before I hand it off to you to close this out, maybe we should get the majority party some solar-powered battery backup calculators for Christmas, because I'm not sure the calculators they're using are working very well. They must be, the calculators they have must be coal-fired, electric-fired calculators, I think. So maybe we should get them those calculators for Christmas so they could come back this spring and do better math.
Well, the problem is they may not work. The sun's not out.
Director.
My closing thoughts are every topic we've discussed today, the Freedom Caucus has proposed policy solutions talked about solutions. The Democrats accuse Republicans of not being, solutions driven. Well, most of the time the solution is simply to undo the policy the Democrats have passed in the first place. That's the answer on our energy issues. That's the answer on our education issues. It's the answer on business fees and taxes. And the Freedom Caucus has offered those answers for a long time. And so don't be deceived when folks tell you that conservatives don't have the answers, because the answers is usually to undo what's been done. And so that's why we're trying to educate the public. That's why these guys fight for you in Springfield every day they're in session.
Exactly. Gentlemen, thanks for joining. Thank you, Director Mosley, for setting this all up for us. And again, we always appreciate that you would join us on these things and like and share and comment and subscribe to all our channels to help us get the word out. This is your source for truth, logic, and common sense in a chaotic kind of a world that we live in here in the state of Illinois. And all of that helps us to overcome the algorithmic
overlords
the algorithmic gods of the big tech overlords. I hadn't said that for a little while, so I goofed that up. I'm sorry about that. So anyhow, with that, let's hit the outro and say have a nice evening.
Take care, guys.
Merry Christmas.